The second album by Oasis, What's the Story Morning Glory, saw them claim their place as the biggest band in Britain, and also spread their wings across the world with songs like Wonderwall and Don't Look Back in Anger. The band was still riding high from the success of Definitely Maybe as they entered the studio to record the single Some Might Say in March 1995. This was recorded at Loco Studios in Wales by producer-engineer Owen Morris, who'd been responsible for saving the Definitely Maybe sessions by finishing the mixes and getting the sound that the band wanted after many failed previous attempts. One of the most notable aspects of the sound was Owen's mastering, using a final limiting technique that meant the release was very loud and in your face, something that would become commonplace years later, but at the time was quite different. He employed a similar technique for Morning Glory, but more on this later. The demo of Some Might Say was noticeably slower than the finished version, with the band actually re-recording the first proper attempt as Noel thought it was too fast. The second attempt was deemed a success despite being actually faster than the first. One pivotal moment during the recording of the song that changed the course of the sound of What's the Story was the realisation that Tony McCarroll may not be the right man for the new material that Noel was writing. Owen Morris said, "The drums were all over the place because it just loses it on the first chorus. So on the mix we had to try and hide the drums, which, for a rocking track, is very unfortunate." It proved to be the last contribution McCarroll made, as he was replaced by Alan White. Despite the difficulties, Some Might Say became Oasis's first number one and put them in a great position when they started the album sessions proper in May at Rockfield Studios near Monmouth in South Wales. Rockfield was a residential studio famous for being the venue of many classic recordings, including Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. This was done in the main studio, whereas Oasis were recorded in a smaller area known as the Coach House. It featured a Neve VR console with flying faders, two Studio A820 multi-track tape machines with JBL monitors and a standard selection of outboard gear. The band had booked the studio for 6 weeks and kicked off the sessions with a live recording of Roll With It, which became the only song that was recorded live. With Alan White still brand new at this point, they hadn't had the chance to rehearse the new material that Noel had been writing, so it was suggested by Owen that they should follow T-Rex's lead and record a vocal and guitar to a fixed tempo click track and then layer the instruments from there. Starting with drums, Noel sat with Alan and guided him through the parts, punching in sections where they needed to redo anything. This proved to be a quick way to work, as drum tracks could be finalised in under 2 hours. Next up would be the bass, either played by Noel or Gwigsy, depending on the song, and following Boner's rhythm guitar contributions. Noel would then spend time layering up to 5 guitar parts plus a solo before being ready for Liam to sing the vocal. The aim was to record a song a day, and for the most part they achieved this, recording Roll With It on day 1, Hello on day 2, Wonderwall on day 3, Don't Look Back in Anger on day 4, and Champagne Supernova on day 5. Feeling triumphant, Noel, along with Owen and their art director Brian Cannon, decided to have a few drinks and listen to what they'd done. Meanwhile, Liam and the rest of the band hit the Monmouth pubs, returning later with around 20 new friends, much to Noel's annoyance. With Noel insisting his new friends leave immediately, a fight broke out, with the highlights being a kicked-in door and a cricket bat wielded at someone's head. The incident ended with Noel actually leaving the sessions. The band didn't return for another 10 days, by which stage the storm had passed and they got on with the job in hand. They recorded Morning Glory, She's Electric, Cast No Shadow, Step Out, Hey Now and Bonehead's Bank Holiday. The break may have been beneficial for the writing process, as a lot of the songs recorded after it weren't completed before the sessions began. In fact, Noel said, "You can really tell the difference between the two sets, with a lot of the newer ones having repeated verses as he didn't get time to finish them." In the end, it only took 12 working days to record the album, over that 3-week period. All that, considering they had a new band member, and half the songs weren't even completed before they began. Although they didn't deliberately set out to make a different sounding record to Definitely Maybe, there are distinctive differences with acoustic tracks like Wonderwall and Cast No Shadow, bringing a softer touch to the Oasis sound. Alan White's use of hot rod drumsticks on these songs was quite different from the hard-hitting drum sound of the previous album. Owen's use of MIDI instruments like the Kurzweil strings used on Don't Look Back in Anger and the Mellotron cello on Wonderwall brought depth and drama to the tracks along with the acoustic piano. Here's the mics used on the recording. For the drums, 2 Shure SM57s used for the snare, top and bottom. The bass drum had an Electro Voice RE20. Inside was the AKG D112. For ambient mics, they used 2 Neumann U87s and 1 Neumann SM2 stereo mic. The toms were Sennheiser 421s. For the hi-hat, they used the Neumann KM184, and overheads 2 AKG 414s if they wanted a brighter sound. or the Neumann K56s if they were going for something softer. On the bass, they use a Nomad Active DI coupled with a Neumann FET47 and a Sennheiser 421 or Electro Voice RE20 if they wanted more mids. For the acoustic guitar, they used the Neumann KM184 and the Neumann FET47 or AKG 414 depending. The FET47 was used for the vocals, and on the guitar amps, a dynamic mic, either an SM57 or a Sennheiser 421, coupled with a condenser, either the Neumann U87 or Neumann TLM 170, and for the piano, two Neumann U87s, one placed at the bass end and one at the treble. Noel's guitars for the album included his Epiphone Riviera, his 1960 Gibson Les Paul Cherry Burst, his Fender Stratocaster, and for acoustics the Epiphone Frontier and the Takamine FP460SC, famously used on Wonderwall. His main amps at the time were his 1963 Vox AC30 he bought from the Hollies guitarist, but interestingly was one of the house amps at the Cabin Club back in the day. His Marshall Bluesbreaker combo was used, and the orange Vintage Overdrive OR 120 head, along with his WEM Dominator combo, with the WEM being favoured for the picking parts in his guitar layers. Pedals would have included the TS9 Tube Screamer, the TR2 Tremolo, the Roland Space Echo, the Boss DD3 Delay, and a Vox Wah. He also used an EBow for the sustain parts on Champagne Supernova. Bonehead played his Epiphone Riviera through either his JCM 900 or Bluesbreaker in a very simple no-nonsense setup, with Guigsy playing his Fender Telecaster bass into an amp but also split to a DI and combined in the mix. Alan White's drums varied throughout the album, with him playing his Gretsch kit, a Ludwig Star Classic and a Rogers kit also. On the vocals, Owen used the Eventide DSP 4000 for pitch correction, predating Auto-Tune of course. The DSP 4000 was a godsend for engineers that wanted to keep great performances despite some small tuning issues. Once everything was recorded, Owen mixed the album at Orinoco Studios, with Paul Weller coming in to overdub a solo on Champagne Supernova before wrapping everything up with his famous or notorious mastering technique, depending on which way you look at it. The key to all this was the soft limit feature on the Apogee AD500. Owen used this as an AD converter when going from multi-track tapes into the digital domain. The soft limit prevented harsh-sounding digital clipping. However, when pushed, it could make the limiter work harder, squashing any peaks down, and thus making the overall sound appear louder. The upside was that the album stuck out, especially on jukeboxes or at home, against other CDs, although critics would have preferred an open and more dynamic approach. Another key part of his mastering chain was a pair of Neve 1081s, with Owen using the EQ to add some mid-presence. Here's my attempt at creating a track using similar techniques, and the Apogee soft limit plugin that emulates the feature used on the AD500. The album was released in October 1995, selling a record-breaking 345,000 copies on its way to number 1, making it at the time the fastest-selling album in British history, behind Michael Jackson's Bad. The critics were less favourable, however. with the melody maker saying, "What's the story sounds laboured and lazy." On this evidence, Oasis are a limited band, they sound knackered. None of this mattered, of course, as the public loved it, with Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger and Champagne Supernova becoming evergreen classics, with new generations of Oasis fans still mad for it to this day.